his endeavors speed up dramatically. With Marc's help, Reggie finally learns the mana manipulation skill and also discovers that the skill is the key to the most efficient programming of the system and its satellites. Chapter 1. Marcus Aurelius Kavanaugh stared through the clear barrier in front of him. The jackalopes that had been captured when he offered a bounty for them were hopping around inside their enclosure in the menagerie. He had thought that the barrier was just a thick glass originally, but the first time he'd come to see the jackalopes, before the menagerie had been opened to the general populace of any port, one of the males had rammed the wall with his impressive rack, the antlers leaving deep gouges in the clear wall. Marc had worried then, but the gouges had filled back in over the next several minutes, leaving the wall as clear as it had been previously. He'd given the jackalope some time to calm down before unofficially opening everything to the public, and 2 days had done the trick. Now the two males rarely attacked the barrier, normally only when someone tapped on the glass. The 3 females had never done so despite having tiny, sharp antler buds themselves. They had been much calmer from the onset, digging in the loose soil to create burrows for their homes. Marc still had a team out with a second Zeppelin trying to get another exhibit for the menagerie. He expected them back in the next 2 or 3 days along with the giant fish that they'd been sent to acquire. The exhibit for that one was already set up, a sort of amphibious enclosure with a combination of a small pond and a winding stream leading into it. He just hoped that the water areas were large enough for whatever they brought back. He could also add a few other creatures later on, which was why he chose amphibious as opposed to just water. Because I'd love to see how big turtles could get with a system. No snappers, but a lot of the other common breeds would probably integrate well without causing danger to the other inhabitants, he thought. He turned and winced when he saw the enclosure on the other side of the path through the menagerie. Fortunately, the enclosures were somewhat customizable, because the carnivorous soybean plants in the enclosure certainly didn't need the full size of the default enclosure. He'd cut it down from its size of almost an acre, since he wasn't going to put anything else in with the plants. They'd just eat it if he did. So now they had a smaller enclosure, and he'd increase the size of the rest of them a bit to use up the rest of the maximum enclosure space allowed by the menagerie at its current ranking. Which means a small pond in the other enclosure is nearly a half acre on its own. That ought to be plenty big enough for a few of those fish, assuming we don't get ones that want to eat each other, he thought. The next tank down from the carnivorous plants was unoccupied, although already set up. As soon as the crustacean and mollusk tank was at capacity, they'd move Octavius II and a bunch of the creatures from the other tank into the one that was ready and waiting for them. With the 2 giant chickens occupying another enclosure, that was all they had in the menagerie so far. Although it appeared that they might have more of those chickens soon. One of the older hens had started brooding, sitting on a nest with several eggs in it. The other didn't appear to like the idea of brooding at all and frequently sat near the front of the enclosure, staring through the glass and waiting for people to show up. Eugene and Katie, the druid and junior druid that had worked and played with the chickens before, were its favorites. Eugene sometimes stopped by with their rooster accompanying him. He'd put it in the enclosure and enlarge it, then pump some mana into the device and back that would increase breeding chances. Katie would just come by and stand right in front of the giant chicken, communing with it. From what she said, the chick was more than happy in its new area, liked the food supplied by the enclosure, but was frequently bored since it wanted to run and play. But the second giant chicken wasn't in the mood. The second one only got off the nest to eat and drink, then went right back to sitting on the eggs. Marc shook his head. It was a good start, but at the moment he couldn't think of anything else they could keep in any of these, unless the elves came through with more of the super-sized garter snakes or something of the sort. He'd asked them to capture anything like that if they found some, and they said they'd keep an eye out, but they were working on their grove, so he wasn't expecting any results there. Good enough for now. We'll get more eventually, he said aloud as he wandered towards the exit. The menagerie wasn't officially open yet, but he passed several people on the way out, all of them accompanied by children. That was one thing he'd been very happy to find out about any port. All of the unattached children had gained some sort of adult mentors, be it a couple or an individual. None of them had been left to fend for themselves in the new world that the system had created. He broke into a smile as he headed up towards the keep, looking forward to dinner. Whoever the cook was, Marc wanted to thank him. With the beef they'd brought back, a bunch of the lower grade cuts had been turned